She wasn't just famous, she was the reason fame existed. Violet eyes, 8 marriages, diamonds like confessions, a storm in silk. Elizabeth Taylor didn't walk through life, she burned through it. She married kings, buried legends, became myth before she became mother. And then they were born into a world already scripted. Michael, Christopher, Liza, Maria. Not children, not yet. Just names under headlines, faces behind glass, footnotes to someone else's spotlight. Because when the world adores your mother, it forgets to see you at all. They didn't chase attention. They survived it. They didn't rebel. They receded. Each one chose something rare. Silence, not weakness, not shame. A quiet exit. Before the breaking point arrived. If you believe some stories should be remembered quietly, subscribe to our channel and let the forgotten speak again. The world didn't just adore her, it surrendered. Elizabeth Taylor didn't ask for attention. She was attention. In an era before Instagram, she was the world's obsession, every whisper, a global event. Every entrance was an event. Every heartbreak front page, every silence, the calm before another storm. She was cinema, she was scandal, she was myth with mascara. 8 husbands, 2 Oscars. More diamonds than doubts. She wore fame like it was stitched into her skin. Too loud to escape, too bright to breathe. She broke rules, hearts, records. And behind her, children. Not seen but positioned. Cameras before lullabies. Bodyguards instead of bedtime. A spotlight where there should have been shelter. The world never asked how it felt to grow up in her orbit. It only asked, where's she going next? Who's she marrying now? Because when someone becomes bigger than life, everything around them shrinks. Even love, even family, even the ones who should have mattered most. He tried to act. For a moment, the cameras felt familiar. Expected, inherited. He had the look. He had her eyes, those violet echoes. But he didn't want the noise. He wanted shape, stillness, control. Michael Wilding Jr. walked away from the screen and turned toward the stone. Sculpture wasn't fame. It didn't ask for attention, it asked for patience. He moved to Santa Fe, desert air, open sky, silence that didn't demand applause. He carved slowly abstract forms, deep curves, conversations between his hands and the marble. Art that spoke, only when spoken to. And yet he never abandoned her completely. When Elizabeth Taylor remarried at 59, it was Michael Jr. who walked her down the aisle. He loved her, quietly, fully. His daughter, Naomi Wilding, now carries the torch ambassador for her grandmother's AIDS Foundation, a legacy passed through blood, but filtered through grace. He didn't reject the name, he simply refused to let it define him. He didn't want to be seen. He wanted to listen. While others followed the flash, he studied the silence. Christopher Wilding became a sound editor, not by chance, by instinct. He worked behind the scenes, Overboard, Tombstone, Judgment Night. Not to be noticed, but to fade things out. He remembered what fame did, the headlines, the whispers at school, reading his mother's life in tabloids like a stranger with the same last name. Fame was not a gift, it was a deal with the devil, and he wanted no part of it. But he didn't abandon her, he became her guardian, a trustee of her estate, a keeper of the legacy. He didn't shout, he didn't write memoirs, he served, quietly, completely. Because when you grow up inside the circus, sometimes the only power you find is learning how to mute it. She didn't want the camera. She wanted distance. Liza Todd was born into applause and never trusted the sound. Her father, Mike Todd, died when she was 7 months old. Her mother remarried. Richard Burton, the man who adopted her, the man she called Dad. But Liza didn't follow them to the screen. She went the other way. Art school, silence, sculpture, not people, animals. She shaped horses in bronze muscles in motion, eyes that never judged. She never used her mother's name, never stepped into interviews, never returned to the spotlight. She chose the forest over the frame, play over applause. And still, her son, Quinn Ty, carries the family's mission forward, trustee of House of Taylor, guardian of the legacy she never claimed for herself. Liza didn't disappear. She disengaged. Because some daughters don't reject the stage, they just know it was never meant for them. She wasn't born into the family, she was brought in. Maria Burton Carson, adopted from Germany, hidden origins, unknown names. But Elizabeth saw her, not just the child, the condition. Maria was born with a hip defect, dozens of surgeries before she could run. Pain that didn't make her fragile, just permanent. Liz once said, "I want her all the more because she's ill." And she meant it. Maria grew up under headlines she never asked to be part of. She didn't rebel. She didn't speak. She became a designer, built a life off camera. Private, controlled. Her daughter, Eliza Carson, now speaks for the legacy and ambassador for her grandmother's AIDS Foundation. Carrying the torch Maria never tried to hold. 2 marriages, 1 daughter, 1 son, no press. Maria was the quietest of the 4, but maybe she understood the cost of love more than anyone. They were not alike, not in voice, not in path, not in the way they chose to vanish. Michael carved stone, Christopher cut sound, Liza sculpted animals. Maria built a life with no spotlight at all, but beneath the difference a pattern. None of them stayed. None of them fed the flame. They didn't sell books. They didn't chase shows. They didn't speak her name for profit. They each carried it, the weight, the myth, the wound, and placed it somewhere quiet. Michael gave it to marble. Christopher gave it to legacy. Liza gave it to horses. Maria gave it to her daughter. They weren't running from her. They were escaping the noise that followed her. Because when the world loves your mother like a goddess, you spend your life trying not to be mistaken for her echo. They inherited beauty. They inherited names. But not safety. Not peace. What fame gave them wasn't theirs to carry. It gave them eyes that never looked away. Headlines that never asked permission. A stage they never stepped on, but could never leave. At school, they were headlines before they were students. They read about their mother like strangers, with matching blood. The world saw her as divine. They saw her tired, busy, gone. Elizabeth tried. She told Christopher once, "I wasn't a good mother." He answered, "You tried." She meant it. He knew it. But the truth lingered. Love was real, but never quiet. The spotlight never turned off, not even at home. And when you grow up inside a myth, you learn early. Being known is not the same as being seen. The children step back, but the grandchildren, they stepped forward. Naomi Wilding, Michael's daughter, artist, speaker. Now an ambassador for ETAF, the AIDS Foundation her grandmother built with rage, love, and diamonds. In 2023, Naomi helped launch ETAF's global HIV awareness campaign, speaking where her father once stayed silent. Quinn Ty, Liza's son, now a trustee of House of Taylor. He oversees the preservation of her archive, not to expand it, but to protect it from the noise she walked away from. Tarquin Wilding, also Michael's son, still present, a witness to a name that still carries weight. He remains close to the family trust, a bridge between generations, memory and name. They don't chase tabloids, they don't sell nostalgia, they speak, they build, they protect. Because the legacy their parents stepped away from, they walk toward, but on their own terms. They didn't inherit the chaos, they inherited the mission. And where Elizabeth once stood in the light alone, they now carry it together, not as spectacle, but as service. She gave the world everything: her beauty, her chaos, her rage, her love. But she struggled to give what the world never saw: herself. Elizabeth Taylor battled addiction, prescription pills, alcohol, endless doctors, endless headlines. She once said, "I'm not a great mother, I know that." She didn't lie to herself. She felt the failure. She was adored by millions, but still learning how to mother one. Because being divine on screen doesn't teach you how to hold a crying child. The camera loved her, but real life demanded something else. She missed things, forgot things, disappeared even when she was in the room. But she also tried, gave what she could, loved them in bursts, in gifts, in gestures. Christopher said it best. She tried. Sometimes trying is all there is. And in their silence, her children gave her more grace than the world ever did. They didn't vanish. They withdrew. No headlines, no memoirs, no interviews with tears in the corner of the frame. Just distance. Each one found their refuge. Michael in stone, Christopher in sound, Liza in nature, Maria in privacy. They didn't reject her. They didn't expose her. They didn't sell their pain. They carried it, reshaped it, laid it down in places the cameras couldn't follow. They had stories. Of course they did. But they chose something rarer than revenge, dignity. Because silence isn't surrender. It's selection. A decision not to perform, not to answer questions they never wanted asked. They let the world keep its story and built their own without needing to explain a single page. They didn't inherit the spotlight. They inherited the burden of carrying it without being seen. But still, they guarded what mattered. The foundation, the family, the name, not for headlines, but for meaning. Michael passed it through Naomi, a torch lit in activism, not cinema. Liza passed it through Quinn, who protects the brand, but lives outside the frame. Maria's daughter, Eliza, now the voice in rooms her mother avoided. And Christopher, the quiet architect of memory, preserving every thread without ever needing applause. They didn't amplify the noise, they softened it. They didn't rewrite her legend. They made sure it was kept whole. Because legacy doesn't live in interviews. It lives in what you refuse to destroy. And all four children chose to protect something sacred, not the fame, not the figure, the woman behind it. They could have spoken, sold stories, named names. They didn't. They could have fought the myth, tried to outshine it, tried to become it. They didn't. They watched her become a legend and chose not to follow. Not out of resentment, but recognition. They saw what the spotlight did, how it praised, how it punished, how it took, and they stepped back before it reached them too. Michael, Christopher, Liza, Maria. None of them broke, but they all knew how it would feel if they did. So they built their silence like a wall, a boundary, a life. They didn't run from her, they ran from what the world made her into. That was their gift, their power, their final performance, not on a screen, but in the quiet choice to protect what the world wanted to consume. They were never the headline, never the scandal, never the spectacle. They were the children of a woman the world refused to stop watching, and they chose to live where the world stopped looking. No memoir, no documentary, no spotlight, just lives, carved, edited, raised, preserved. Not in front of the world, but beside it. Elizabeth Taylor left behind more than diamonds, more than perfume, more than myth. She left behind 4 souls who chose not to echo her name, but to protect it. And they did, quietly, elegantly, completely. If you believe some stories are louder in silence, subscribe to our channel and let the forgotten be remembered with dignity. Another shadow waits. We'll return to it soon. Tell us in the comments whose silence deserves to be heard next.